June wrap-up team, that's what we're going to be going through today. I go through a fair few case studies. I give you a little bit of an assessment of how the market is in doing auctions in 15 states at the moment, all through the US. So give you a bit of an insight to what some of those markets are doing as we expand and as we grow through North America. Thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully this gives you some really good information that you could share with possibly one of your clients. If you need any help with any further information on any of the properties or our process, just reach out. Thanks again. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. So this is the June wrap-up. We're going to go through some case studies for the month of June. June was the best month for Harcourts auctions this year. Probably one of the reasons for that is our outreach into many different marketplaces at the moment, which is something that I wanted to give everybody a bit of an update on this episode as well, and some of the trends and some of the areas that we're seeing. I'll go through some of the case studies first of all, and then I'll give you a bit of a market wrap-up. Like at the moment, we're doing auctions in a little over 15 states in the US at the moment. Nothing in Canada and nothing in Mexico at this point in time, but in 15 states all across from, say the Florida, New York. We've got properties in Oklahoma, we've got properties Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, all of these places at the moment that we're seeing real estate at. And it gives us a really good dynamic view over all types of price points and all types of areas that what is happening at the moment. But I just want to kick it off first of all by thanking everybody that has contributed to the results in June. Again, one of our best months ever. As a company for Harcourts Auctions. Again, as we broaden that marketplace, you'd expect that growth, and certainly we're feeling that at the moment. So price points and categories all the way down from closings this month. We had a closing for $15 million all the way down to, I believe the lowest was $230,000, which was a vacant lot of land. So again, shows you the diversity of the process, but just want to go through just some of the standout case studies. We're going to start in Nevada. Okay, this property is at 4663 Birdview Crescent in Las Vegas. A gentleman by the name of Ken was the listing agent on that. Now, Ken, I'm sorry, I'm going to get your last name wrong, so at the end of the day, I don't want to butcher it, but either way, it's a result that's on the auction website as well. Traditionally listed property was his own property as an agent, and was traditionally listed at $1,299,000 for about 3 months prior to us helping out and taking it over as an auction or converting it over to an auction. Ken had come to us and just wasn't getting the traction that he needed out of the marketplace. Showings were very limited. He had no offers, no activity, nothing for that 3 months. And then the interesting part about it, at the moment that we switched it to auction, we did a bidding to start from at $900,000. We sold it for $1,250,000 prior to auction day. This offer was about $75,000 higher than where a lot of the others were, showing the real power of being able to leverage prior to auction day the opportunity of auction or the anonymity of auction, where we can really take a situation where if that buyer had walked into the property traditionally and the average days on marketplace were up and the price was $1,299,000, there's no urgency, there's no real call to action, there is no real leverage that agent or buyer or seller could have in that moment. So again, taking advantage of that situation with leading into prior to auction, understanding where the market sat and understanding the nature of a good offer was something that Ken was able to do, selling for $1,250,000. So again, bidding to start from $900,000, selling for $1,250,000, and was previously on the market at $1,299,000 for about 3 months with very limited showings, no offers at all. Total number of offers was 7, and I believe the groups that we had through it was about 55 with inside the window of about 3 weeks on the marketplace versus I think it was like 10 or 15 showings for the 3 months. It wasn't very much at all. So again, good example. That's a Nevada property, Las Vegas more specifically. Just talking about a couple of Tennessee results that we also had as well. We had a property that was bidding to start from at $2,250,000. Now, this price point's a pretty high price point when it comes to Tennessee real estate. The property was in Carl Seaford Memorial Drive in Brentwood, more specifically in Tennessee, which is close to the Nashville area. Now, again, $2,250,000 sold for $2,485,000. This is one of those situations where the property was traditionally listed before. The sellers had purchased the property at the height of the market in 2021. And look, they knew they needed an accelerated process when it came to putting the property on the marketplace. So it didn't go on the marketplace traditionally in the very beginning. It actually went straight as an auction because they knew that it was going to be a pretty tall order to sell the property in the current marketplace being 2024, being June, that that ultimately they bought it again at the height of the market at 2021. So they needed to use auction to push the urgency and the fear of loss in order to, get a pretty remarkable result with inside 2 weeks. Now, this was one of the situations we didn't have a great deal of overwhelming interest on the property. It was just at the right price. The bidding to start from price was a lot higher and closer to where their expectation was, because that marketplace and that price point needed to have that match there. The sellers obviously needed that urgency as well. So either way, $2,485,000 was able to do that with inside 2 weeks. But a great example of the negotiation up instead of a negotiation down from the very beginning of putting that property on the marketplace, and not trying to guess what is the value in today's market versus what it was, not going down the path of hoping that it's worth way more money than what it was previously, even though you know that it isn't and it's going to sit on the marketplace forever. Again, being able to understand market value by getting volume, or in this case, lack of volume, to really solidify that, hey, this is the best we're going to get in a short span of time, from a property perspective. Again, not underselling, getting it done for more than what they previously purchased the property for in 2021. I think that's a real big testament to the agent, which is Mackenzie Hyde-Strawn. She was the listing agent out of Scout Real Estate there, along with Jonathan Harris as well, who's Jonathan's going to be featuring on the podcast here shortly in the coming episodes. Now, another property that I'll just make mention of as well is a quick one, is that the property at Inverness Avenue in Nashville, also Mackenzie's listing, bidding to start from at $900, selling for $1,075,000. Okay. Property was listed as an auction right out of the gate, and as and had a lot of competition, and it was that it was up against being locally. This was one of the reasons that they went auction in the first degree of things, is because all of the listings around it, if they were to come to marketplace, they were just in a pretty big glut of inventory that was all around the same price point and also pretty similar in that area. So the property had never been on the marketplace, the property had never been on the marketplace before as a traditional listing and converted over. But this was a good example how auction is an example of that. It's not, the marketing is never in isolation. A home is never on the marketplace in isolation. It's always on the marketplace in competition, and auction outprices, but it also outprofiles at the same time. And this property sold quicker than any of the other ones that were surrounding it for a better price than a lot of them has already closed for, because we took advantage of getting the buyers there first and getting the competition juices flowing versus anything else that they were going to be comparing us against. So I think a great result there. Another one that I want to make mention of in Tennessee also, but this is now in Memphis. This is with Stacia and Bill. They did a phenomenal job. First auction with us out of the Memphis area, first auction that we've ever done in Memphis. Now, bidding to start from was $1.3 million, and we sold the property for $1,550,000. This property was on the marketplace, I believe, for 6 months, just over 6 months prior to us taking it over as a traditional listing. Now, it had over 70 showings on that property within the 6-month period of time, and just no one was taking action. It really was one of those situations. They had not even received an offer on the property previously. And again, just one of those things, not to be a broken record, but, Stacia and Bill, running their first auction with us, were pretty nervous about the whole process. They did a fantastic job. They really involved us from day one. And we ended up getting in total, I believe it was 5 offers on the property prior to auction day. Now, some of those offers were quite low, but it really made the cream rise to the top and got the sellers really understanding where that value was. And we got really close to what their dream expectation was with it. Don't get me wrong, there were obviously aspirations of a great deal more before that, when it was on the market 6 months before that. But that said, is that this was a buyer who had previously seen the property, okay, that ended up coming through and just really was fearing the loss. It was an emotional transaction at that price point, as you can appreciate, and really helped us. But again, we didn't want to run the buyer didn't really want to run the risk of missing out on auction day, and they increased upon themselves 3 times without a counteroffer before the auction day itself, showing the pure negotiation power of auction. So that was great. Now I'm going to transition into Florida. We had our first couple of auctions in Florida. We sold 2 different price points. Of course, this was a condo. It was on the marketplace for 2 months traditionally prior to this. Now was on the marketplace at $1,185,000. We ended up selling it for $1,180,000. They didn't have any offers on the property for 2 months as a traditional listing. Bidding to start from was $950,000 was the advertised bidding to start from price. Now, the interesting part about all of that is that again, this was an offer that was received prior to the auction, and the buyers actually increased upon themselves 3 times to stop the auction because we had some really good interest in the property. The biggest challenge when it comes to listing properties in Florida or in Miami area is the fact that you've got so many model matches within a building that might be on the marketplace already, and it's just one of those things that standing out is just really difficult. So that is where the auction process, the word auction, the pricing strategy, and the set time frame really helped us here. Buyers saw this one first before looking at a great deal of others, and ultimately put an offer in, wanted to snap it up quickly, increased upon themselves 3 times to stop the auction. A tremendous result selling prior to auction day. As you can see, in the month of June, a lot of property selling prior to auction, creating that urgency. And one of the reasons for that, a lot of these properties are converted properties from traditional to auction. Keep in mind, everybody thinks that auction is about creating an unbelievable atmosphere and everyone bidding and all of this type of stuff. Sometimes, that's not the case for a property that hasn't received that type of interest from day one. So therefore, it's not real estate by magic. It is real estate by just providing more leverage and making sure that we protect the integrity of the property and giving our best opportunity to negotiate up. Another property, this was an interesting one, on the marketplace for 4 months prior to and only had 10 showings. Now, the seller had done 3 price reductions on this property. Now, lower price point property, $300,000. The property is Southeast Sugar Sand Circle in, I'm going to get this, Hobe Sound in Florida, which is it's above, I'm going to get it wrong, but anyway, it's the northern end of southern Florida. There we go. Okay, that's probably the best explanation for it. But Joe, the listing agent on this one, and Joe did a tremendous job with sort of letting go of the reins. It was a flip property of his. He'd obviously done multiple price reductions. As I mentioned, 3 price reductions as we were leading into it, and only getting lowball offers, like very, very lowball. We did bidding to start from at $300, ended up selling it for $360,000, a 20% increase, which was over what the property was previously listed for. So a really good outcome there as well. Joe, very happy. Now, another one in Florida. This is in Hollywood, in Florida, a pretty key marketplace. One of the big things that I'll talk about here when it comes to Jeff. Jeff was a previous broker of a very, very large agency that he sold out to Douglas Elliman, and then this was one of his own properties that he put on the marketplace, and he'd had it on the marketplace, had been on and off for 12 months. So at the end of the day, this was a really great result. Bidding to start from at 1.8, but then sold for $2.1 million, which again was a tremendous result considering that it was on the marketplace previously at 2.2. So really a really great result to get it that close, considering on and off the marketplace for 12 months. He was really looking for a solution, being a broker himself. I think that's one of the cool things about this, is that I've given you 3 examples of agents themselves owning the real estate and being their own agent, using this process because they can see merit in it. A great outcome for them, converted it over to auction. And, this was Jeff's first auction. He actually did this remote while he was in Italy and had his assistant showing the property at the designated showing windows. So again, it was a great outcome. Sold it prior to auction day as well. This one was absolutely prior to auction day. One individual that came into the property wanted to stop the auction. We weren't overwhelmed with the volume of interest. Everybody had already known it was on the market. But under $2 million, it really made people go, well, maybe I need to go relook at this. It was actually somebody that had already seen the property when it was previously on the marketplace for about 2.5, and we got them through it, got them connected again, and got them to pay a really good result for that property, as far as we're concerned. Final one that was an absolute standout for us for the month, from a case study perspective. And again, these are just a little bit of a snapshot in. We want to obviously make sure that we provide you guys with sort of examples and case studies of all of this. Seller had seen us get a couple of results on Lucky Avenue in Menlo Park in Northern California. We'd sold one for $6.8 million. We'd sold another one for $5 million on that street. It's an area that's being, it's a new development area that they'd opened up in that area of Menlo Park. This one is 998 Lucky Avenue. Great story. This is testament to the auction process, but also Karen Kovacs, who is the agent on this property, did a great job also. The sellers actually reached out to us, being Harcourts Auctions, and we connected them with the agent because they were so overwhelmed with the results that we had already on Lucky Avenue that we connected them with the agent that had those, which was Karen. Bidding to start from 3.2, sold for 4.75 million. But the real kicker in all of this is that it was on the marketplace previously for 4,595,000. It had no activity on it, no offers, and very, very limited showings in a 2-month cycle. Now, the market up there in the Bay Area is used to moving pretty quickly at this price point. But long story short, is that we had a total of 7 offers prior to auction. This individual buyer increased upon themselves 4 times to stop the auction and was significantly above everyone else. So it would have been counterproductive to take the property all the way through to auction day. Obviously, seller very happy, cash, non-contingent offer, close in 10 days. And it was, again, spectacular result. Indeed. After being on the market, no offers, no showings, really hardly anything for 2 months. Just testament to the urgency that auction can create when it comes to this. Finally, just a bit of a wrap up when it comes to marketplaces that we're in at the moment. The Arizona marketplace, that is definitely a marketplace at the moment. Certainly the greater Phoenix area being Scottsdale and some of the luxury categories, inventory level there has just gone through the roof. Now, again, thing we've got to take into consideration, you've got to appreciate the situations that we see, folks, are the situations where people aren't exactly, the properties aren't flying off the shelves. There's usually the difficult situations and difficult case studies that we obviously are part of. There's some agents that use our process in the very beginning and they net their sellers a great deal more than putting it on the marketplace traditionally, trying to guess the price point and negotiating down. That said, is that Arizona at the moment is definitely one of the more troubled marketplaces from an inventory perspective. We've got a property there at the moment where bidding to start from is 2.7. We've been able to produce a result of $3 million prior to auction, but the seller is saying no at the moment. I'm going to keep that property under wraps at the moment from an address, but agent doing a wonderful job. But the seller's got lots of equity in the property, but they're choosing to say no because they believe that they can get more. Now, meanwhile, if I have $3 million to spend within the area that they are, I can choose between, I think it's like 75 and 50 homes with inside a 2-mile radius from this home. So I'll say that again, is that if I've got a budget of $3 million, I can choose between 50 and 75 properties within a 2-mile radius of this home. Again, that is a flooded marketplace from an inventory perspective. The thing we've got to take into consideration in Arizona in certain markets, it's cyclical, much like the desert markets of California. It is, the summer season is too hot and there's not a great deal of people that sort of move there in summer, those winter marketplaces where the snowbirds and everything move in. But inventory supply is unbelievable. The other marketplace I want to make mention is obviously Florida is a very competitive market. We've seen some really good results there, but we're seeing an adjustment in that marketplace as well. Certainly in the price categories that are above these price categories that we're in. Currently, we have a $6 million auction in Bayshore that we're taking through the process at the moment. Just hasn't seen the activity that luxury marketplace once did. There's no question about that. But then the one real outlier for us also is Tennessee. Memphis seems to be, moving along pretty well. But the Nashville market where it's been so hot for so long with a great deal of, it's one of those migration marketplaces where a lot of people are moving into, it's really, really cooled off. And again, one of the things that obviously people are using is the auction process, not only to captivate attention within those markets, because you're dealing with a much more limited pool of buyers. It's also the markets from a perspective. It's also using the process in order to help the sellers understand the marketplace. Now, it's not necessarily asking them to accept less; it's just getting them an answer quicker so we can make effective decisions. Oklahoma, Broken Bow is another area that we're seeing a great deal of activity of people wanting to auction their property because of the vacation rental market. Now, in areas where there's vacation rentals all over the place, we've got a partnership with a company at the moment that they're trying to auction off a few of their assets to try and get top dollar for the owners. It's a management company that is managing a lot of those properties. The interesting part is that those vacation rentals, they're using the previous year's financials to prop up the sale price because those financials are good, but 2024 is not as good a year from a bookings perspective. And because a lot of those marketplaces are saturated, where people are being caught out in the Arizonas, the Oklahomas, the Nashville's, or some of those marketplaces in Florida where Airbnbs are a case, is people that have just bought it and paid for it based on the numbers of the Airbnb paying for it and have paid purchase prices on that. I think that people need to be very conscious buying Airbnb properties just for the specific reason of those short-term rental properties. I think you need to always look at a long-term asset of whether or not it will perform in the long-term perspective, because that short-term I can see coming in really peaks and troughs, or even going away altogether depending on permit sides of things. Other marketplaces are moving really, really quickly and really hot. The Pacific Northwest, certain price points in California, over $4 million in California, and certainly Southern California is definitely sluggish. There's no question. But again, all of this comes down to interest rates. All of this comes down to certain things that hopefully we get a little bit of reprieve on towards the end of the year. That is our little bit of an overview and some case studies there for you as well. Hope that helps. Hope that gives you some insight But either way, thanks for joining us on Rethink Real Estate. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.